And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, November 30th. How's everybody doing?
Hey, Rocco.
Thank you.
Doing great.
Good.
Hey, Rocco.
Hello.
All good.
Hey.
We are officially open for business.
Yay.
Yay.
All right. So there is a few things that we should take care of, but I'm going to wait till later. How's that? This week we were trying out Ubuntu Budgie 1910, and it is, I think, one of the distributions that have some really great defaults in the setup as soon as you get into the desktop. But I want to know what everybody else thinks. So PZ, let's start it out.
Well, I'd like to change it up a bit if that's okay for this week, because all the guys who come in and are at the bottom of the screen at the moment, we end up all stealing their thunder. So how about we reverse it?
Nobody likes change, PZ. Nobody likes change.
Change is inevitable.
That's
It's
fine with
healthy.
me. Let's go backwards.
Go for it.
All right, Alex, let's start with you, sir. Did you get a chance to look at Ubuntu Budgie this week, or were you like busy with your stuff?
What's a budgie? No, just kidding. Well, last time I used budgie was probably 2015, and I remember kind of liking it. I mean, the short answer to your question is no, I didn't. But the waffly answer is that I haven't used it in a while, but I remember liking it, so I'm curious to hear other people's opinions.
All right, Barbara, you mentioned earlier that you installed this on real hardware.
Yes, I did. I have an old XPS 17 that sits here. It used to be my workhorse. And I installed it on that. The first time I installed it, after it went through, it said that some applications hadn't been installed, blah, 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 and all that kind of nonsense. Then when I rebooted, it wouldn't let me log in. And I said, well, forget that. And I just wiped everything and did it again, and it installed perfectly. So I don't know if it was the way things were set up or whatever, but the second install was perfect. And I did notice something, and I don't know if the Budgie people can fix this, or this is an Ubuntu problem. And I don't know why, but I noticed this. It says when you click the install Ubuntu Budgie, you can try Ubuntu Budgie without making changes to your system directly from this CD.
Yeah, that could be updated. That's a slight
that's an
typo that could
Ubuntu
be
issue.
updated.
I never pay attention to that. I just install and never worry about it. So I didn't notice it until this time.
Well, I don't know how much flexibility they have with the installers. I mean, obviously they put their own branding on it,
Right.
so I don't know if they can actually change the wording in it. I would assume that they can, so I would think that that's an Ubuntu Budgie thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was just one of those things that normally I don't even notice that stuff. And then I did have the error that when I installed it the first time, and the second installation worked perfectly. I've been playing around with it, and I like it.
So,
And
compared to Ubuntu Mate, Barb, what are the similarities, or what are the things you like about it that you would say?
well, I've got the dock, and it's got the panel on the top instead of the panel on the bottom, because I don't like the panel on the bottom. Maybe it's too many years of using a Mac. I prefer the panel on the top. I just seem to like it. It seemed to run pretty snappily. All the same features and all the same tweaks are there. They're just in different spots. That took me a little while to say, okay, so now where did they hide the how to change the appearance? That type of thing. And I found it. I just kind of poked around. But it just seems it's very easy to navigate around, and anything that I use works.
Very nice.
So it's just those few things, and I really liked it. And it actually made this poor old machine that I put it on, kind of made it actually feel a little bit snappier than it has been.
All right, very cool. Good report.
Oh, and one other thing. It automatically saw, and this is probably the Ubuntu part, it automatically saw that has an NVIDIA card, and it loaded the drivers. I didn't have to do that separately.
Yeah, you can do that right in the Ubiquity installer now. So that is
Yeah, or it does it just, you just tell it install whatever.
Yep.
And that works perfectly.
You tick on the third party, stuff, and away it goes. It's pretty slick.
Yeah. Well, it used to be you'd click on that and you still had to install the NVIDIA drivers.
Yep. That's very true.
Dan, you're a perfect guy to ask that question too. Is that Ubuntu Budgie that would fix that?
So Ubiquity probably is the same. The wording of that is probably the same for all of the flavors that use Ubiquity, with the exception of maybe Kubuntu, because they do have their own cute version of that. That may be a little different, not sure, but I would think all of the other flavors that use that have the same wording there.
I can confirm that Mate does.
Okay.
Yeah, I just never looked at it, and I think
Yeah.
I never paid attention to it.
But
That's
now
really
it's
what it
something
is.
that you can't unsee, Barb. Now that
Yeah.
you mentioned it,
Yeah.
you ruined it for all of us.
I know. I
Everybody.
ruined it for
Everybody.
myself too.
Yep.
Don't worry, Barb. I'll file a bug. So
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good. Thank you.
That does seem bug worthy.
Mhm.
Dave, how are you, sir?
Glad to be back.
Excellent.
And
Glad to
I
have you
can
back.
confirm that Kubuntu will automatically install the NVIDIA drivers if you click that third-party tick.
They all do
Because
now. I think
I
it came
spent
in
the
at
week
1810.
exploring. What?
I said, I think they all do now. It came in at 1810.
Yep.
They
I
also
don't know about the wording though.
No, it says it'll automatically do it because
No, the CD thing.
oh,
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Installing of the NVIDIA, because if you're going to use the third-party drivers with Secure Boot, which is now across all the things, it automatically puts in the keys for you, and you just have to confirm them on the reboot. And that's what I was playing mostly with this week. But I installed Budgie in both a VM and on hardware. Both went in fine. The one thing on the hardware, I did a minimal install, and it still installed LibreOffice Math, but nothing else from LibreOffice. And I'm like, why? I don't want anything from LibreOffice.
That's a good question.
And so I was just curious why, of all the stuff that they didn't put in from LibreOffice, that was the one thing they did.
Yeah, they probably just missed it, Dave. So find a little bug, because the stupid thing about the Ubiquity installer, from what I understand, is it puts absolutely everything you want
and then pulls it back out,
and then takes it back out because you ticked the minimal. And if you forget to add one particular item, it gets left in there.
Yep.
All right, I will do that then. But the only other thing I haven't had time to find yet, that is not my personal preference, is the nice big clock calendar on the desktop. I generally like a very clear desktop, clean desktop. I know there's a setting somewhere to remove it. I just haven't dug far enough to find it yet. It has run smooth.
Budgie
send.
Yeah.
It's a Budgie applet, Dave.
Right.
Okay.
It's not a conky. It's an applet.
Thank you.
Yep.
It has run fast. It connected to Wi-Fi, connected to wire, both under VM and on hardware. Everything just ran. It was nice. I've, come to like again Ubuntu, and I may break down and stick with it a little while, at least until the next update cycle, to see how that goes. Because honestly, my VPN has a nice, simple installer for Ubuntu that is a pain in the butt to get all the individual settings in OpenVPN. But Budgie is nice. I still like KDE for being able to set up the different desktops and assign what desktop a certain app opens on. But other than that, I really can't complain. It's running nice. It switches desktops fast when I have multiple apps open on different desktops. Easy to find them off of the little tray down the bottom. So I really like it, and kudos to the devs who put it together.
Cool. That's a good review. Dan, Kelly, how are you, sir? Oh, you're muted.
He's got a whole list.
I
He's
see
muted.
that. That's good.
Well, you see, I started on this like 5 or 6 days ago, He's got a book there, mate.
Well, I found as I install this stuff and I find things that I need to address, that it's easier to write them down because I will surely forget them.
That's fair.
First of all, I got this and I tried it in a virtual machine, and I had the toughest time getting it to actually size up in the virtual machine. The installer right off the bat didn't work properly. It cut the bottom buttons of the installer off to go back or continue. So you didn't get to see those, but if you put the mouse in that general area and clicked, it would move on.
What hypervisor were you using for that?
Hypervisor?
Yeah,
Like
VirtualBox
VirtualBox or KVM or what?
Oh, VirtualBox, 614, I believe.
Okay. I'm doing KVM now, so I'm doing my homework during the class.
There you go.
And KVM works just fine, just for reference.
Okay. Well, anyways, after I got it installed and stuff, I couldn't get the window to actually size correctly. I either come up too short or too large. So I wound up putting the guest editions from VirtualBox and installing that, and it fixed it.
Yep.
So after I was happy with that, I went to the hardware install, where the installer worked a little better in that situation, except I still had where there's a little square box in the corner. It was whited out with no text in it. But yeah, but I probably got weird hardware issues or something like that, because that's what most of this stuff adds up to. The open apps disappears when you have apps open and you minimize them. Unless you push Alt Control, or Alt Tab, you couldn't really figure that out. Some of the apps I wound up pinning to the plank. How many of you guys actually use the plank? Okay. We'll skip right to the plank. At the plank, I got a box that's about yay big that sticks up about so many pixels. It's the size of the plank. And anytime I use that monitor, it won't let it go down below that box where the plank's supposed to sit.
Sorry, Dan, what is a plank?
The thing on the bottom that's got all your icons that you're using.
Dock.
Okay.
Dock, plank.
That's been there, Dan, forever in Plank. That's a bug that's been there forever. Happens on all the distros.
See, I don't know this because I've never used it before, but good to know. The software store is kind of a little flaky. You put something in the search and it doesn't come up to the top. It's like somewhere in the middle or the bottom, what you're looking for. And I had an atrocious amount of audio issues with Budgie. I'd have the audio just completely stop working in the middle of a YouTube video, could not bring it back, tried Pulse Audio K and start and everything else. And it got to the point where I had to reboot the machine. I mean, it's happened a lot of times. And when the machine is rebooted, sometimes you have to go back and reset all your hardware the way you want it. So you have your mic on your camera turned off and the mic you want to use turned on and stuff like that. Other than them things, Budgie, yeah, I kind of like it. I can take it or leave it. It is kind of nice. It has a nice big, they call it the Raven, I guess, that you pull out and all your notifications stack up. It's kind of nice that all your notifications aren't all crammed together in a corner somewhere.
That switching of the audio, Dan, is also an Ubuntu bug. It's not specific to Budgie, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I noticed with other distros we talked about, when you start up the computer, your audio settings may be defunct, but this would do it while it's running.
That's definitely odd.
Yeah, I don't know if I've encountered that. I have encountered when you reboot, sometimes and it depends if it updates. If it updates, it seems to wipe out your settings.
And I'd be watching a YouTube video and all the devices in the configuration device tab gone. They just go to nothing.
That's kind of weird.
Very strange. All right, Dan, you got anything else, or is that your lot for now?
Well, I have dual monitors. I like to have a few icons. I noticed the icons with Budgie, you just can't move them all the way to the left. Where you put your primary monitor is where your few icons on your desktop want to stick. They don't They don't go off that monitor. I like the fact that Budgie did include with their installation complementary wallpapers. So if you want to use dual monitors with different wallpapers, there you could find a couple wallpapers that somewhat match. And I wound up using Hydra paper to actually get that to work. And there you have it.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
I didn't want to eat up any more time than needed.
So I'm not going to try and pronounce Adam's new name, but I'm guessing he didn't use Budgie. So we'll go straight on to Tyler. Tyler, how did you find Budgie?
So just base impressions, just a couple things that kind of stood out to me. When I went to change the theme, I noticed that there are certain themes that don't show up in the Budgie settings that will show up in GNOME Tweak after I installed GNOME Tweak, because I was just trying to change it to default Adwaita for GTK applications. So that was a bit weird. Not a huge fan of Plank. So I like to do a Unity style layout. And I noticed this with Ubuntu Mate as well as Ubuntu Budgie here. Plank does not respect the existing panel. And but I do want a dock application, and I don't think the default dock on either of these desktop or panel on either of these desktop environments really work well as kind of a dock.
Did you, Tyler, by chance try changing the panel, like creating another panel in Budgie, and there's a setting in there to switch it from acting as a panel to acting as a dock?
So I did try that. So acting as a dock will basically just have like, it'll remove all the empty space and just be centered. I do like it to kind of act as a panel in the sense that it fills the entire left hand of the screen like it did in Unity.
Right, so you want it all the way to the top, basically. Yeah.
So I do find the Budgie panel does work a bit better for that with the application switcher than Mate does. So I'll give it that much, but I'd still prefer like Dash to Dock in GNOME or Latte Dock in Plasma setups.
Mm-hmm. Just a quickie, Tyler, did you go into the settings of the Plank along the bottom? Because everything you're asking for here, you can achieve. I've just put my Plank all the way on the left and told it to fill the screen, and it's
So
top
yeah,
to bottom.
I did that, but what it does is it doesn't interact with the default Budgie panel, so it'll overlap.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it doesn't go to the edge of the panel, it goes to the edges of the screen, which is where my problem is.
Agreed. I try to do the Unity work flow as well, and yeah, I agree. It doesn't flow well.
So, and I guess I am trying to judge it based on trying to force a different workflow on it than what it was designed for. So I'm not going to say it's bad for that reason, but those are just things that I ran into personally that it doesn't fit what I want out of it. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. Joe, over to you. Did you have a chance to have a go at Budgie?
Yes, I actually was jotting down notes because I didn't do that earlier. I, like always, didn't spend as much time on it as I would have liked this, because it just seems like these weekly things with the 2 weeks, it's nice because we can go a little longer on them. But I thought the install was very quick. It was nice and easy. I'm going to start with what I like about it as far as points I think of. I do think it's polished. The software center, comparing it like to Mint, it's like almost instantaneous, where my Mint will take a little bit to open up and come up and that kind of thing. So I think it's very snappy that way. I love radio buttons. I've told you, I just like the idea of being able to click a radio button to turn things on and off as I will, and that stuff for choices. I do think the wallpaper is nice looking. It does work with touchscreen. I always test everyone with touchscreen. The things that I noticed, this is doing some of the stuff from memory. The firewall wasn't installed by default. Usually our complaint is it's not turned on by default. This wasn't really even installed by default from what I remember. The settings window, and I've been playing with it right now. Like if you just click from the menu to go into the settings area. And I don't know if any of you experienced this. I'd like to hear back from you if you did. But when you scroll down, like, or go into the applications and you click on them, it just nothing really, quite a few of the options don't change. I mean, it's just there. It's like everything says the same thing. You'll see the title change, but nothing else changes. Yet, if you right click and go to the settings from there, desktop settings, then the desktop settings window comes up where you can actually do a lot of the individual changes. Or if you do it from the applet center. Because that was something I was struggling with. And believe it or not, I just noticed that now while I was waiting for my turn here. The other thing was, oh God, I lost my spot here. Sorry. The panel at the top. I like it at the top too, but I was trying to see if there was a way to just right click on the panel or do any changes from there or move it around. And I don't see anything. Every time I right click, there's nothing. And I don't know if that's, I was trying to see if that was in the desktop settings or whatever. So if you did want to change the panel location from the top, I don't know how to do it. I couldn't figure out or find it. So I don't know if any of you experienced that too. And that's pretty much as far as I can go with this right now for things I've noticed. But I mean, I do think it's a really nice, clean desktop and a nice distro. I do like it, but it just, for me, I don't know if I've just gotten so settled into what I'm using that when you get into something else and you're trying to figure it out every week, a little bit of frustration sets in because you can't find something or you're trying to relearn something inside of a week. That's why I do like the 2-week thing, because I do think that it gives you that little extra time to play with stuff. But anyway, I'd like to hear, if anybody else had the same experience with the settings. Like I said, if you go in just to bring the settings itself up and had that experience, specifically the applications is where I went down to. Like if you scroll all the way down to the bottom in the applications and tried to go into, desktop settings or whatever, I couldn't get anything to change. So, but other than that, I think it's still got a lot of potential, but I don't know if this is just 1910 because I'm not super familiar with Budgie like some of you are. So, but that's about all I can say about it right now.
I didn't have any issues with the settings not working, but if you're looking, if you go into Budgie desktop settings, along the left-hand column, partway down, there's a setting for top panel, which is where you get into the settings for the panel along the top.
Yeah. There's two sections of settings. There's settings and then there's Budgie settings or desktop setting, one of them. So there's two sections.
Yeah, maybe that's where it's confusing because even just going into the regular settings, like I said, the settings window and trying to click down and find desktop settings or wherever I went to, I can't even find it now. But it's like I noticed that there was a whole list of stuff that just wasn't changing in there. It was very bizarre to me.
You need to open up System Tools because that's where all the Budgie specific setting apps are listed.
Okay.
The Budgie applets, the Budgie desktop settings, Budgie discourse, Budgie themes, Budgie welcome.
I'm sorry if you already said it, Joe, but did you try rebooting in between you changing these settings to see if they took place after the?
Oh yeah. And I just turned this on again tonight. It's been sitting here off, so I rebooted a few times. I thought maybe there was something like that as well that did come to mind, but I guess the thing is just like what Dave is saying though. It's why would you have 3 different options to go into what sounds like the same place only to find it different? The applets. I think the applets window is kind of nice. Or if I think it's when I go into the from the menu.
Well, what's really confusing, Joe, is if you right mouse click the desktop and go settings, you get a settings panel. But if you go to the menu and type in Budgie, you can find Budgie desktop settings. So why doesn't that open when you right mouse click the desktop instead of the normal settings?
I don't, and that's my point, is there was, I think I just typed settings. I think that's, let me go into here and see if that brings up, yeah. See, I go into settings, it brings up a big window and it's got like the whole list on the side, kind of almost like the GNOME desktop does, where you've got the whole list of different things. And I was trying to see if maybe I could change some stuff in there. And I clicked on applications and like you go into Budgie themes, go into Budgie welcome, go into Budgie discourse, and then Budgie settings in there. Those 4 things listed alone, just on that side column, you'll see just the title changes, and all it says is notifications. So
Yeah, because
maybe I'm misunderstanding that it's for notifications, because to me that confuses you from wanting to do, like if you right click and go to desktop settings, then that window opens up, or the applets window, and it opens up the things to change everything. To me, that kind of, and I'm not an unseasoned user, but that confuses even me.
Yeah, the applications menu is really just to list all of the applications and very, very minor changes that you can make to the actual application, not use Budgie themes to change the themes. To change the themes, you have to open up Budgie themes. So yeah, it can be confusing, but that's what the application thing is for, in case you can make some minor tweaks to the GUI.
Yeah, see, again, comparing it kind of, am I incorrect in saying, it looks like the GNOME menu, and normally in GNOME, you click on that, and then it brings up what you want, and then you do your changes, and, whatever, and you go back out, where this is just, like you said, like a list, and if it's only showing the ability to do notifications, it kind of threw me. Because
see, Zeb, I told you nobody likes change. Told you.
So,
all right, thanks.
I just didn't know if
Joe.
I was the only one that was experiencing that, because it just threw me when you do a right click, you go to desktop settings, boom, it brings that up. Or you go to applets and it brings up that window. But then you bring up the settings and all you see is a list, and then nothing's changed. And I thought, okay, what am I doing wrong here? So it just seemed like to get to the same almost description label, settings, it seemed like 3 different places. And then the last one was the one that didn't seem to respond. It just showed you a list. I don't necessarily see the purpose for that, but that's just me.
They're trying to be like Plasma.
Right. They're trying to confuse you.
Okay, I get you.
All right. Bill, sir, did you try Budgie? Bill, are you there, sir?
I should unmute myself. That probably works better.
Probably. That would help us to hear you, dude.
So this is a terrible week for doing really in-depth stuff, but I did give Budgie a look. A couple things. Joe, you mentioned Firewall. Firewall is installed. UFW is installed by default, but the GUI is not available as a default install. So you would have to add the GUI, but UFW is available in the base installation.
Yeah, but didn't I see the firewall somewhere in either the welcome screen or in somewhere where it was just a checkbox to turn it on? It wasn't the GUFW GUI, but it was like a checkbox for a firewall. It was somewhere. I know I seen it somewhere.
The applets, and then it said that install. That's what I did. You had to install the GUI, so I didn't realize it was.
No, I didn't install an applet.
Okay,
this was somewhere. This was a checkbox somewhere, and I can't remember. Maybe somebody else remember. But anyway, Bill, go ahead, dude.
One of the things that I thought was really nice is they do a lot of work with the welcome screen, which I'm quite familiar with, and I think they do a very, very good welcome screen. I believe if you go down to optional tasks in their welcome screen, you will get the GUFW option to install. So that is out of the welcome screen, but the base package is in there. Even without that, you can just command line it in, but it is in the welcome screen. One of the things that was mentioned is the desktop clock, and it's a little bit weird how they have that set up to go find it, because you have to go into the desktop settings and either wherever you've put your panel, top panel by default, or if you've changed it, and you go into panel and it's like a show time applet. And that's very weird, and it's not really intuitive if you want to remove that.
Yeah, I'm the one that asked you about that on Telegram.
I had the same issue, Dan. It's just really weird how they placed that, and they don't really explain to get rid of it.
And it just says show clock. It doesn't say desktop clock, so you're thrown off even that far.
Yeah, it's just it's a minor thing. It's just something that it's probably one of the things opening a can of worms to change it for a very little thing. It'd be maybe better documentation would help, but it's not the biggest deal. It's a beautiful desktop. It's absolutely gorgeous. The theming is beautiful. That's really all I can say. And Barb, I did open a bug report for you, and I put the number in the chat.
All right, Colin, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Rocco.
I don't know if you're doing good. You had some issues this week, didn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't.
Did you get it worked
I've
out?
spent no. I spent
Oh,
many
man.
hours making a video, and I can't render it. Simple render animation in Blender, and it's updated to the 2.81, and it's not doing anything. So I don't know if they've changed the process of rendering or what. I've been on that for a while now, really enjoying it until that. So I don't know. I've got to figure that out. So
well, let's
all that
talk about
distro hopping.
let's talk about something much happier, maybe.
yeah.
Budgie.
Well, I haven't had a lot of time in Budgie this week because of certain reasons. But there's a couple of things I've noticed. First of all, with some of the complaints you guys had, you just had to go and watch some of my videos of previous Budgie.
See?
They would have explained a lot of things, but I feel as though Budgie's getting to the point where they really need like a control center like XFCE, because they've got so many different settings. I think that would probably help them out if they did that. It's getting to that stage, I think, because Budgie does have a lot of different places, and not everyone's going to think of going to the welcome screen to find what they want. So I think that they probably could look at doing that. Another thing I noticed is
before we go any further, Colin, we also have to remember that Ubuntu Budgie is relying a lot on the Solus team to do the heavy lifting of that kind of stuff. I don't think they would take that upon themselves to change that.
Probably not.
But
Probably
anyway, go ahead.
But I feel as though Ubuntu Budgie's got a few more than what Solus has anyway. I believe.
On the app side, it's got a lot more. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why I say they've got the Budgie desktop settings, they've got the settings, which is the GNOME settings, they've got Budgie applets, and all, they're all in the menu, some of them, but they're, like they said, there's some in the welcome screen, which I don't know if Solus has a welcome screen, do they? I can't remember. Pete?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. So there's another thing. So that you need to really go back to the welcome screen to do some certain things, which would be nice. Beyond the welcome screen, if they had some sort of control center for people to go and find those sort of things. So I suppose unless you go through the welcome screen at start and look at everything, but a lot of people aren't going to do that because they're excited to look at the desktop, I suppose. So, if you consider those things. The other thing is I've noticed is in some of my videos in the past, I have mentioned that they should make a separate icon for the desktop settings, the Budgie desktop settings, as opposed to the normal settings, which they have done. I'm happy to see that. Although the settings icon looks a little bit dark. So I've done a Rocco here. I've noticed something.
It's a pixel off, is it not? Or what?
No, just the icon looks dark. So you can't really see the pictured things in the desktop settings. It's a bit dark.
I think that might be the theme you've got, because I'm looking at my desktop settings icon and it's grey with much darker grey. So it's a light grey with much darker grey icons on it. So it must just be the theme you've got with the icons.
Must be my glasses then, maybe, Zed.
I think a lot of that depends on the theming that you choose.
I'm using default theme from out of the box at the moment. I haven't even had a chance to change themes. So, and just to report another thing, I did install installed the NVIDIA and everything on this laptop with Optimus. And I have to say the Ubuntu range at the moment, or derivatives, have really performed well with this install of NVIDIA. I haven't noticed any issues so far with NVIDIA install. So happy to report that. So that's my little take on it. And I'm sure everyone else has got some other things to say.
Well, I put a link to your YouTube channel in the chat so everybody can go watch your videos, Colin.
Cheers.
Yeah, good stuff. Kevin, I see Mr. Didn't Budgie, so we'll skip right over you. Big Pot, have you had a chance to try?
Yeah, I did try Budgie for a little while, and I had a couple of troubles with the installation, mainly because I was doing it in a VirtualBox, and I guess the guest editions aren't in the ISO, which is kind of weird since guest editions are right now baked in the kernel. So that was weird. but selection of programs was okay to me. Only thing I kinda didn't like was they didn't include VLC, which in my opinion is for beginners a lot better than any other offering, especially those who are coming from Windows. They're used to at least VLC for the video player offerings we have on Linux. Otherwise, it is Ubuntu works. It is Budgie. It is works great. I don't know what to say more.
Good enough. That sounds good. Good to see you back.
Thanks.
Yep. Chris, did you get a chance to try Ubuntu Budgie this week?
Chance to fully. I noticed that it was had the ZFS option, and I wanted to really play around with that, but I didn't get a chance because I was fighting with Chirp.
Yep.
I still haven't gotten that successfully installed. So, but that isn't a budget problem. I think that's a PPA problem.
Yep.
So
version
that's
problem.
Won't go much into that, other than it's so I can play around with this thing. Yeah.
Yep.
So other than that, I mean, it installed fine. I mean, I had the usual. I had to go into fdisk and set the boot flag on the boot partition. Oh, wait a minute. No, I went with ZFS. Did not need to do that. That was last week. Given my distribution screwed up here, and but I mean, like I said, I mean, I spent most of the week fighting with Chirp, so I didn't really get to play around with a whole lot.
All right.
Okay, so Tony, I think you're up, my friend. So how did you? We know you installed it last week. So how did you find the rest of the week?
Well, I played about with it for a couple of hours on Sunday. I liked it so much, I decided to put it on the main machine and try it. And it's been on the main machine for the whole week, and I'm still using it now. And as Rocco will no doubt attest to, that is quite a big thing for me.
That's quite a
to
feat,
stick
Tony.
For a whole week. It is. I've had a lovely week. I haven't had to be in the office messing about with a computer. The wife actually wonders who I am because she's actually seen a bit of me. But as far as Budgie goes, I would prefer it. I would prefer it to have the whisker menu, but I can live with the menu. I didn't find a lot of the problems that I had done previously. This version seems to be a lot better. I find the settings quite easy, actually. I was quite surprised to listen to the other comments where people are struggling with settings and things. I didn't seem to have that problem. The plank dock seems to work okay. Doesn't suffer with any problems, which is a good thing. The only thing I found, which I had noticed in older versions, is that some icons still are blurred when they're in the plank dock, which does annoy me a little bit, but everything's a compromise. I have to be prepared to accept certain things. In actual fact, if I pop the dock up now, the zoom icon is really blurred. So maybe that's a Zoom thing. It might not be a Budgie thing. It could be the plank dock. I don't know. And if you open something up that shows the padlock icon, that also is out of focus. But 99% of it seems to work really well. And the fact that I've run it for a whole week is rare for me. So it's a 2 thumbs up from me.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Dan, you're up.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of time, obviously, with the holiday here in the U.S. To play around with it, but I did install it, and I had it on the machine for a while. I like Budgie, and I like Ubuntu's spin on it. the the plank doesn't bother me. I think it gets out of the way for me enough that it doesn't bother me. I do think the settings are a little weird. Not that I can't navigate it, but it's not as straightforward as everybody's mentioned. It would be nice to have some sort of consolidation there, I think. And I wonder if that's not because they're trying to add their own settings for things on top of the DE settings. So they're not merged together there. But other than that, I think it's fine. It's nice to see the applets actually. I think some of those are kind of nifty. So good to see that.
Yep. Well, that is actually the one area where Ubuntu Budgie differs from Solus, because a lot of those applets are, I forget which language it is, but they're built on a different language than what Budgie is built on.
Yeah, they're Python. They're built on,
Python,
I believe.
not Vala.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, I was going to say Solus prefers C+, isn't it, or something like that?
It does.
Yeah.
All right. Budgie Spider. Peter, you are the Budgie man. But
I am. I was about to start by saying I'm probably the only one here that actually uses Budgie every single day on the awesome Solus and on the Filio even too. So I use Budgie every day. It is my workflow. That word does exist, Deb. And I love Budgie. I just love how it works for me. It really is out the way. To me, it is one little panel strip at the top of the screen that I work with. Saying that, I'm not fond of docks. So one of the first things I did after I installed, I removed the plank dock and I put the icon task list back in place. And then I went and themed it exactly like I do in Solus. So I went and found the themes and everything, and I'm liking it. It is Budgie on Ubuntu. Actually, the Ubuntu is very stable. When I installed it, I did use the ZFS, which seems to run fine, but I've not done anything with it. I've not tried any snapshots or anything, but I mean, it does boot up fast. It works fast. And I think that's about it.
Is that going to pull you away from Solus?
Absolutely not, because it's not a rolling release.
All right, I figured I'd check. I didn't think it was, but
yeah, it is. Sorry for everyone else who works in the other Ubuntus, but I do prefer this one because it is Budgie.
Fair enough. All right, PZ. Now that we did the whole wraparound thing. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I can sum it up that if I had 4 thumbs, it would get 4 thumbs up. It is superb. It just works out of the box. I love the theming. I love the way it all hangs together. The one gripe I've got has already been mentioned by a number of people, and I've just brought them all up now. You have settings. You have desktop settings. You have the Budgie welcome screen. You have the Budgie applet screen, and then you have something that I've only just found called onboard preferences. They all need to go into just one center somehow. Sure, once you've clicked it, you can fire off and get something else, but they need to be centralized in one place because, as I say, I've been using Budgie on and off maybe for 2 or 3 years since about 1804. So that's a couple of years now. And I've only just found onboard preferences. Because I did, I think, what Joe said and typed settings in the menu and then found all these different places where you can go to and configure. And that's without deciding to install GNOME tweaks. So that would be 6 places. So that's the only criticism I've got. Other than that, Budgie is as smooth as silk. I love the way the dock, I don't know what you was doing wrong, Dan, but for me, when I moved stuff, maybe it was VM that was doing it. If I move my Zoom window down, the plank disappears because it's on window dodge. So I think it might have been, and it doesn't do it instantly. You have to wait a second for it to disappear, but it might be a VM issue. And I'm with Alex on this one.
I had it on real
Quemu and
hardware.
KVM all the way. Sorry, Dan, say again?
I had it on real hardware too, on the primary monitor. And yeah, the plank panel bar at the bottom, it would disappear and come back. But the issue I was talking about is, let's say you open from your menu Thunderbird. Well, if you shrunk Thunderbird down, it wouldn't go to the plank panel. It just disappeared. So you didn't know if it was running in your machine or not without pushing Alt-Tab.
That does sound weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
you're
mine
right,
it
there's-
stayed in the plank.
Yeah, and there's the other thing is as well that they might need to change, but then this is probably a plank thing, not a budgie thing. Is I do like it when you highlight an item, like I've got Firefox now. I've got 3 separate Firefox windows open, but it doesn't show me a little preview, so I can pick which one I want to pop up. But I guess that's the plank guys, not budgie guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the only criticisms I've got. Work on those panels that you use to integrate the system. But other than that, yeah, it's rock solid. It flies on this machine, and I like it
It's
a lot.
not that I dislike it. I used it for 5 days and stayed on it. It's just the audio was too buggy for me to risk coming on with it tonight.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
you know, it's weird hardware.
Yeah, thankfully I don't get that. The only time it changes on mine is when I first boot. I then have to use XR&R to expand the center monitor, so that's 4K. And then for some reason, one of the HDMI screens loves to turn its sound on and take it over. Even though I went into Pulse Audio and said, you are off. The minute you mess around with any sort of like screen settings, it goes, oh, I found a HDMI thing. Have some of that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's in all of the distros that work. And I don't know whether it's a Pulse Audio thing or just a generic computer thing, but I have to do the
It's
same
something
thing.
across the Ubuntu strain for some reason, because I've had the problem with every distro we've checked, except with Budgie, it actually messes up while you're watching a video or something.
Mm-hmm. But going back to a small point I made earlier on, I'm actually with Alex on, I don't use VirtualBox. It took me a little while to get used to it, but if you can master KVM, Quemu, and Virtual Machine Manager, absolutely brilliant. And I might actually even do a tiny little video on how to set up a new VirtualBox, because again, not a new VirtualBox, but a new virtual machine, because again, that took me a while to get used to it. But now literally it's like click, 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 done, and it's up and running and starting to open the box.
Got some bad news on that front though.
Which is?
Virt Manager's being deprecated by Red Hat.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, so what are we going to use instead? That's a pain.
Well, there's still an upstream
VirtualBox.
project, right? But I mean, KVM and QEMU. You say, what did you say? QEMU?
I call it. I don't know why, but I call it QEMU. I don't know what to call it, so I end up going.
It's a silly
QEMU.
name. Anyway,
yeah, it is a silly name. Yeah,
KVM.
Quemu. That's what I call it. Quemu.
Yeah,
It's a
Live
QEMU.
KVM, etc. They're not going anywhere. It's just the Virt Manager front end that is. Red Hat's rationale is that Cockpit is going to replace it. Not sure I agree yet, but we'll see, I guess.
I'll have to go and have a look at Cockpit then. Boo.
So, isn't GNOME Boxes, doesn't that utilize KVM and QEMU as a backend?
Yes.
Yeah.
They put their own spin on it, though.
And it's not as many options for specs and such.
No, but GNOME Boxes is really slick.
It is.
It's cool. It does some things, though, that aren't
and
so cool.
it's also clever now the way and this is slightly off topic, but the way you can actually go, give me a quick distro and pick from the list, and boom, it goes straight into installing it. It's really clever in that regard.
Probably the easiest to set up to just get rolling into a distro, but it does have issues with certain distros as well too. So
yeah, don't try to install Arch.
Yeah.
Just
Are
a
you
question.
able to import other virtual machines into it that were made by like VirtualBox?
I believe you can. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got an article on my blog actually about moving KVM stuff over to ESX, but I can write one for VirtualBox if you like.
That'd be great.
And I think the amount of headaches you're going to run into depends on what file format you used for the virtual machine storage file.
Yeah. QCOW2 is your friend.
I never had a problem with VirtualBox until they went to 6.
You want to post that link to your blog, Alex, into the YouTube chat if you can?
YouTube. Oh, another tab.
You probably have to do it in the Zoom chat, and then we'll copy it across for you, because I don't think you're a moderator on the YouTube thing. So, but before you get away with it, Rocco, because you always try to, what's your take on?
What do you mean I try to get away with it?
you put these little snippets in every week, but each week Dan and I or Eric forget to say to
my
you,
opinion
and
is not
Rocco, have you
important.
tried Budgie this week?
it
And what
most
did
certainly
you
is.
find?
My opinion is not important. It's
Yeah, it
everybody
is.
else's
It is
opinion.
very important.
Okay,
come
so
on.
I did install Budgie, and again, I'm going to say that, and I've always said it, that Budgie has probably the best defaults for a system. It has just exactly what you need, and not a whole lot more. The system tray area is set to where you got exactly what you need to move around, reboot the system, and yet not completely cluttered with all kinds of stuff that you don't need, and yet gives you it, and it's functional. That being said, I think, and I actually got asked this question of, what would it take to run Budgie, or what do you think the biggest issue with Budgie is? And although I agree that the settings is a issue, I can work around the settings because I can get used to the settings where they are. I can learn where they are. But my biggest issue with Budgie is the menu. It is a very underwhelming menu without a whole lot to change. You're stuck with that menu. There's no other options whatsoever. So obviously I run GNOME, so I prefer a full screen menu, or even a half or quarter screen menu. But the menu is something to me that is very important because you spend a lot of time in that menu opening up applications. Because, well, I don't know if you'd spend a lot of time, but I think you spend a lot of time. I do, looking around, throwing, going into different places, checking it out. So I think the biggest issue with Budgie is the menu. So there's my take on Budgie.
That said, it does ship with a couple of nice things already built in, like caffeine's there, ready to go.
Yep.
There's something else which I'll just have a look for. But yeah, there's a couple of small things that I would normally have
It's
to
got
go.
it's got a Redshift.
Redshift.
Thing. Yep. That's
And
nice.
I think one of the applets that's overlooked is and I forget exactly what it's called. It's the switcher. I forget what it's called, where you can place windows. It will place windows for you in a grid style.
Yep.
You can add more grids to it, and it'll automatically place those windows. So that's something that I think they should highlight more so people get used to it being there, because, obviously nobody's looking for it. But
They could probably put a button on their welcome screen, saying, here's our applets that we have or
recommend,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, something like that would be cool.
It's definitely a cool thing. If you guys still have Budgie installed and want to play around with it, you should.
And a silly little thing, but if you've got, let's say, a keyboard that for whatever reason doesn't have a caps lock and a nums lock, they have a wonderful little applet that can enable you to put that indicator up on the top panel, much like KDE do. I haven't found any other distro that does it, and that's for one particular keyboard I've got that stores the battery and does it from the light, from the house, etc. It's really handy because you press nums lock and it will come up with the number 1. You press caps lock and it will go to an A. So it's a really handy little feature that I've not seen in many other OSs. So those applets are really, really nice.
XFCE does have one.
Say again?
XFCE does have one.
Oh, I'll have to have a look.
LXQt does as well.
Steve, you didn't give your opinion. You want to give anything on Budgie?
That's okay. Mine was more of I don't want to say negative. I didn't have a great experience. After I built my USB, I just tried to get into live CD off my Peppermint laptop, and it took forever to get into the live CD on my testing laptop. Didn't take as long, but it seemed to take a while to get in to boot it up. Once you got in and installed it, that was right quick. And as always, I mean, especially using a laptop, I'm always looking for the tap to click right off the bat, and it worked right off the bat. I'm with you on the menu. I don't like, I like in Whisker, you can change defaults, but as you scroll across it, it's highlighting in the next, you don't have to click on it to get to it. I had some other issues, and in listening to you, most of you, it seems like one of them was probably a plank issue.
I'd bring up a program, it would start up in Plank, and all of a sudden disappear. And I'm like, oh, what the heck happened? And about 20 seconds later, it would reappear, and then the program would start up. I was making I was going to do a quick video, and was having issues. I was going through some of the themes in that, and noticed I downloaded, I think it was the Matcha theme. I'm forgetting which one, but when you switch that over and then you look at the desktop, the clock all of a sudden shrunk really small. And then I like using Chromium. I installed Chromium. Gave up on making the video, and was watching Colin and watching his different desktop environments. And I was going to make a comment, and I'm like, "What the heck's happening?" I'm typing, and nothing's happening. It like the Chromium would freeze up. The computer would kind of freeze up. I would have to reboot it, and it would do it again. So again, that might not necessarily be a Budgie issue, but I've never had that issue in any other distro that I've installed Chromium on. But it is it is nice looking and polished. I like the dark theme when you get that going, and that. But yeah, I mean I didn't have a lot of luck with it this past week. So
well, okay, so we've had many opinions tonight, and some are good, some are maybe need improvement. So, but I would like to thank all of the Ubuntu Budgie people, the devs behind making Ubuntu Budgie, and give them a big thank you for all of the hard work that they do. They do obviously get help from Solus, but there is a lot of other work that they get done that may not be right on the top of the surface when you go into Ubuntu Budgie. So definitely thank you for all of the hard work.
Absolutely. And a special shout out to Dustin, one of the devs. He's always very active in our Telegram groups as well. So if you want any help, just shout him out and he'll come along and assist.
Yep. All right. That's our thoughts on Ubuntu Budgie 1910. We have to pick another Ubuntu distro because we still got a few left. I think we have, what do we have? A Ubuntu Studio, and we have another one besides that to go through? Anybody?
Kylan was mentioned last week.
I don't think we need to do Chillin'.
No.
I agree.
Can we do Ubuntu next week?
Well, what do you guys think?
Ubuntu is the furthest back before Ubuntu Studio.
Okay. Is everybody okay doing Ubuntu?
Sounds good.
Yep. I'll have a go at it.
All right. Ubuntu 1910.
Try to harass Sean to get here.
Yeah, right. He has not been here since the last time we tried it, so we'll give him some crap about that. All right, it's time to open it up. And what does everybody want to discuss this week? I know what I want to discuss, but I don't want to just
No, I want to hear about your Google Stadia, because I watched your stream with sort of like fascination as to how this was going to work. And you seem to be quite blown away by it. So give it to us, Rocco. What's so good about Google Stadia?
Okay, so this is not a popular opinion, especially in the Linux community. So we're just going to give that disclaimer out. I don't really care that it's not a popular opinion. I'm just going to give you the facts and my opinion on it. Google Stadia is awesome. It's absolutely awesome. There will be people that won't like it because of the name, and because of Google in the past have started programs and shut them down. And there will also be people that will not like it because it does take a decent internet connection in order for it to happen. They recommend, I think, a 40 megabyte connection, something like that. Like you can go as low as 10 megabyte connection, megabit connection, but you won't get the high resolution of the game itself. So they recommend a 40, I believe, for like anything over 720p. But this is the deal. So I figure I'm going to do this live stream and I'm going to test it out and see if I can actually play the game and stream it at the same time. So I start the stream and I start playing Metro Exodus, which I had previously purchased. So right now the games are limited. There's not many games there. There's probably, I don't know, 25, something like that, with more games to come. So I ended up buying Metro Exodus and playing it. And, you know, there was a lot of language in that game. So I decided to switch over to one of the other games.
Thanks to Stadia, you were demonetized in record time.
Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
like, so I played Destiny 2, and then I was horseshoed into showing off how this actually works with buying one. Right, Kevin?
I take none of the responsibility. There was minimal goading involved.
So this is what happens. You download an app for Stadia onto your phone, iOS or Android. And they give I got the Founders Edition, which comes with the Chromecast, whatever little thingy, but you don't need that to play on your PC. So I go and I open up my phone app on the stream. I look up Grid because that's what was suggested to play, which is AAA racing game. And I click buy, and within 1 second, Grid is now in my browser with a little icon to play it. There's no install. There is no downloading updates. There's no making sure you got the right hardware. Basically, what you need is a connection, a decent connection, and you need. I mean, I don't think you're going to play this on a old ThinkPad, okay, just because of the video stream coming through. But any decent machine today is going to be able to do this.
You know, one other thing there isn't as well.
What's that?
Ownership.
Okay, so that is a topic that needs to be discussed further, and we'll get into that. But this is a situation where you don't have to worry about downloading or installing the games. You don't have to install Steam, Lutris, or anything. These are games that are Windows-only games that you can run without and be on any system, any operating system, whether that's Mac, Windows, Linux, whatever. And they will be able to play on your computer instantly. You can go from playing on your computer to go walk over to your TV and continue the game where you left off right from your computer. This is amazing technology.
The one thing I'll say about that, because I did that while you were streaming and we were playing together the other night, it was a very interesting experience, and it was pretty quick, like being able to just close out of Chrome on my desktop, switch over to my TV, turn on my Stadia controller, and like start up over there. But like it was a little bit like clunky to start it up. I mean, normally you just have to like click hold the Stadia button for a minute and it launches it if it's paired to your Chromecast.
You said that's subscription based though?
So the Founders Edition, I think, was $130 to start out. That comes with 3 months of the subscription, which I think, Adam, correct me, is $9.99?
Yeah, $10 for the subscription, but going forward, I believe probably in February was what I heard, they will have a free tier. The subscription gets you some free games, the ability to stream 4K 60 HDR and 5.1 sound. But if you don't care about that stuff, you can just buy the games and stream a 1080p 60 for free. You don't have to have a subscription.
So let's get into that question about not having ownership of the games. So there is that thought process that you don't have ownership of the games. No, you don't exactly have ownership of the games as far as you don't have a physical copy, you don't have a copy on your machine. But I think that that is a trade-off that you have to decide whether or not that is okay with you. And two, on the flip side of that, there is no set thing to say that any other company like Valve could not just shut down Steam tomorrow and your games might not play. You might not be able to connect to the Valve server and update your games or whatever. So I don't know if it's a showstopper. It is a question that needs to be answered by each of you guys who are looking at it. But I don't know if that's a showstopper or not. With all of the pros that it gives you, you're streaming a game. I was streaming Metro Exodus at. I mean, obviously it's not. Well, I don't know if it was not 4K resolution, but it was. You couldn't differentiate it from if I was playing it from that right there or playing it from my machine, and I didn't need a high-end video card to do that. So now we'll open it up. What do you guys think of Stadia?
So on the ownership thing, you brought up Valve. I remember years ago, Valve has responded to this question saying if they ever were in a situation where they had to shut down, they would give you the option and find a way to allow the games to be downloaded and ran without the Steam client or requiring the online DRM before they completely shut down. I have not seen any promise from Google regarding this situation if they were to send Stadia to the graveyard like they have with other products.
And that's a valid point, though, Tyler, because they have taken other product lines and introduced them and then sent them to the graveyard.
Yep.
But I think Stadia is slightly different than just a service like, say, Google+. When you're marketing it through companies now, you're having companies develop basically for it. You're having marketing through products that Stadia logos are going on boxes. It's slightly different than just a normal everyday service that Google would shut down. So could it happen? Could it happen? Yes.
It does.
But
it
like a
doesn't
messaging service
work out on the take-up, doesn't it?
But Google's track record has not shown them to be trustworthy in my eyes to want to spend money on a game for that platform and then expect to be able to play that game 5 years down the road.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but everybody was the same with Android at the beginning. Were they going to be an Android after a bit? It's going to depend on the take-up of the hardware and whether game developers are going to develop for it.
Speak up, Big Pod.
I just want to say that many companies drop projects all the time. That's nothing special. It's projects are being dropped all the time. It's like in final stages, they see it won't work, they will drop it. Even if it's already out there, they will drop it if it doesn't work. Also, in my opinion, do we actually own anything digital? No, we don't. You can own a physical copy, a physical CD, but whatever's on that CD, it's not yours. You're being loaned that. That's in my
there's
opinion.
a good number of like online games these days that like you have to, it has to phone home to licensing services, or it has to have connectivity for multiplayer play if it's exclusively a multiplayer game. And so I mean those types of companies, like, they're taking servers offline for that kind of stuff, all the time whenever it becomes untenable for them to, keep carrying that game forward. And I don't think this is really that much different than any of that.
And I think group play is the other area where Stadia is really going to shine, because as it stands now, when you're playing with a group of people, you've got the hardware specs of each individual's machine impacting how they are playing the game and how they are interacting with the other people. With Stadia, everything's being done on their servers. The only thing the individual machines are doing is the streaming and the display on the monitor. So it's going to be a lot smoother multiplayer experience than you get with a lot of multiplayer games now.
It does
that's
open
no
up the
different than the
possibility of
Microsoft.
massively multiplayer games of, right now I can only connect to a few dozen people before things start to go south. But if you're in the same data center, you could have tens of thousands of people with no latency. I think that could be quite an interesting use case that it enables.
And I'm not saying, that Stadia shouldn't exist or it's the worst thing ever. But like I said, I'm just skeptical because of Google's track record. I would be a bit more open to, let's say, Valve's implementation of something similar, because Valve has been doing gaming for over a decade. So they have more of a reason for me to trust them than Google right now.
I think you brought up a good point, Tyler.
I can
yeah,
I can put those to rest actually. So
would
this
agree
isn't
with
this isn't a
Tyler.
typical Google kind of web app thing, right? This isn't Google Inbox. This isn't Google Wave. This is partnerships with hardware manufacturers, Intel, AMD, many others. It's partnerships with ISPs. It's partnerships with game developers, game studios, game publishers. It's a lot of people in this whole thing that are counting on this to work. Google can't just pull the plug because it's not just Google who's involved in this. There are a lot of agreements, there are a lot of contracts, there are a lot of these kind of deals that go on that will keep this going for quite a while. And I don't think that people should really be that worried about Google killing this, because it isn't just Google saying, okay, we're done. Like, there are other large companies and large manufacturers who are involved in this process, and they can't just pull the plug on them.
I don't disagree with you, Adam, but I think the point that Valve focuses on games and games alone might change the quality of it, I guess. So they're totally working on just games, whereas Google has a lot of other things that they're working on. Not
So
that they
does
don't
Microsoft.
have. Very true. Not that they don't have probably the resources to throw at it, but it's not their sole focus, I guess.
Well, here's the
but
thing with that.
It's not Microsoft's sole focus. It's
No?
not Sony's sole focus. It's not, there are a lot of companies that do game stuff that isn't their sole thing.
Right.
Well,
But
let's be honest.
Sony and Google, Sony and Microsoft have had almost 3 decades worth of experience in this. This is a brand new venture for Google.
So these are the same things that you heard in 2001 when the Xbox was launched, or in
It was.
1995 when the PlayStation was launched.
I'm
they're
not
still
saying it
around.
can't be successful. that's something to take into account, I think.
And the other thing that you need to remember, though, is, look at all the data that Google is going to be able to get from all the game. And the gaming is a big industry. And the data that they're going to be able to get, they're not going to want to give that up. It's not going to go away anytime soon.
So to counter the point about Microsoft in 2001 when the Xbox came out, I could still get an Xbox, get old Xbox games and play an Xbox and play those Xbox games offline. If Stadia were to go under or Google were to pull the plug on it 3-4 years down the line, can I play those games?
But Tyler, you're missing one point, and this is what I was going to say before. Where Microsoft's concerned, you might have the disc, you might be able to play it offline, but you're not going to have the map packs or the DLCs you bought. And that was the complaint of my son. You'd spend all this money on the add-on map packs and expansion packs and all this other stuff, and all of a sudden Microsoft thought 3-4 years down the line, oh, we're going to get rid of those, and then we want to sell you these new ones. And here you spend all this money on those map packs that you really liked, and they're not there anymore. And so that's not a good solid statement. And that could be the same thing with Google. Basically, I think the technology of what they're doing is phenomenal because it works across all platforms. It covers everybody with no invasion of, you got to have certain hardware, like Rocco said, that kind of thing. The thing that I could see potentially happen is they say, okay, this game is getting to be 3 or 4 years old. Time to upgrade you to a new one. You need to buy this because the other one's going away. And that's just basically all you're doing is even though you're buying it, it's like Big Pot said, the truth of the matter is you're renting the license and you're just getting the permission to use it for the fee that you're paying.
Yeah, but isn't that the same with all games, though? Because I remember
exactly.
Absolutely couldn't wait for Gran Turismo 1. And now here we are on GT Sport, which is Gran Turismo 7. So over the years, I've probably spent a couple of £100 on, if not more, buying all the GT Sport series. So whether it's going to be online and it's going to be taken off and a new series coming out, or whether you buy the physical DVD, you're still going to be paying for new content when it comes out. And I'm lucky enough still to have an old PS1 portable. And I churned out Gran Turismo 1 the other day and started playing it. And I was like, oh my God, why am I driving this square box around a track?
You mean the Tesla truck?
And yet back in the day, it was the bee's knees. But you look at it now and compare it with a 4K I'll get off the PS4, it's chalk and cheese. So at the end of the day, Google Stadia is going to be very much like Linux. Yeah, you get to choose what's best for you.
Yep. You don't have to use it. You don't want to. If you do, great. Bill, go ahead.
So one of the things that came out of this is there was a lot of hate when it came out with people that didn't have Stadia. And Kevin, I think it was the first day Kevin was streaming a racing game and we were watching it and it looked great. And obviously the driving portion that Kevin did wasn't quite up to snuff, but some of the things are Google has done things we don't like. Google is this, Google is that. But if you're going to judge Stadia, maybe you should actually try the product before you cast all these stones about it. And yes, there are issues with Netflix dropping titles, Amazon Prime dropping titles. And that is something that's not just gaming related. That's movies, TV, books. If you're doing, some Kindle stuff, almost everything. So Google is really jumped the gun on this. And there's a huge market. Gaming is how many billions of dollars? So the thing that just really ignited my anger was the hatred on something that you haven't touched and commenting on something you haven't used. How can you do that? If you haven't used it, it'd be like doing a distro, what we're doing today, talking about Budgie, saying something about Budgie. Have you used Budgie? No. Then how can you say anything about it technically and realistically? You can comment on licensing and that you don't like the possibility it could go away. You can comment on, the whole webpage of dead Google products. But at least look at it with wide eyes, openness, and intelligence and go, okay, this product actually works. Yes, there's a negative. I do need a high internet connection to do it. But just don't go out on a blind limb and say, I hate it because it's Google. I don't know anything about it without at least looking at the product.
So, mind you, I wasn't saying that I hate Stadia itself. I wasn't trying to diss on the concept or the technologies. I was just expressing concerns over Google's track record themselves.
I don't think Bill was talking about you, Tyler.
Right,
Tyler, it was not directed at you or anyone sitting in this room on this Zoom chat at all.
No, because my take on it is Google's a business that has to fund its shareholders, right? So if something's going to tank, and if Stadia does tank, Google will throw it away. But up until that time, they'll stay because as somebody rightly said, all glory to Google at the moment. He's named himself, Robert. As rightly said, Google's invested in a lot of money and time with other companies and contracts. They can't just pull the plug just like that regardless, because then they'll be in breach of contracts and the lawsuits will be amazing.
Well, somebody mentions Valve and how they are helping out and they know games well and all this stuff. And I agree. And they do awesome work and they really, as they have single-handedly helped Linux go leaps and bounds in the gaming area. But they are a gaming company, basically. If you're looking at who can, this has been tried before. If you remember, OnLive was a service that was similar to Stadia years ago, and it was so exciting to think about, and they didn't have the resources or the infrastructure to do it, and it failed. But if anybody has the infrastructure and the resources to make this work, it's Google. So
the data centers don't know, to be fair.
What makes us any different than Microsoft, though? The truth of the matter is, you guys say, I'll use Windows to be able to jump in and boot and do the gaming I want. Everybody's worried about Google's business model. It's the same thing as Microsoft. And the truth of the matter is, I'll tell you, I spent quite a long time with EB trying to help me figure out how to get the Proton, the eggs thing, whatever he created.
Egg roll.
No, there was a Proton.
Oh.
Glorious
eggs or whatever that created a Proton. And I did everything right down to the T that he said, and I still can't get this for whatever reason to run for me, and it's frustrating. And so quite honestly, I thought, well, I can go on my Xbox and just game a Windows game or Microsoft game or the AAA's on there, but then you're spending $60 a game, whatever. To me, this is very, very, very appealing because if I want to run it on Linux, I've got the hardware to do it. This is awesome. And it's like Rocco has said time and time again, the tool for the job for what you want to do. If you want to be able to play AAA with little invasion to your system, you're willing to put up a little money because everything we buy, it doesn't matter if it's Steam or whoever, you're renting that software, so to speak. Who cares? Because we have all said it. He asked right in here, how many of us would use a proprietary software if it did the job for us? And I think 99% of us all went, and whether we like it or not, that's the real world. And yeah, we would love to do everything 100% open source and free and all that other stuff. But the truth of the matter is that's not the real world. And I look at this as just another tool and a means. And quite honestly, it excited me when he did that the other day. So,
yeah, but Joe, don't forget though, you mentioned about you spent $60 on a game on the Xbox. You're going to quite easily spend $60 for a game on Google Stadia. The games aren't free. You have to buy them.
But I'm talking about, you buy the $60 game, then you're paying $60 a year to Microsoft, and then stuff goes away. I mean, so it comes down to where do you want to put your money at, and that's what it is. I'm not begrudging. I'm just saying I know they're a business, they got to make money, and that's what it's about. And, the thing that this does is it kind of raises the bar for everybody because as much as Steam is a gaming company, and I think it's wonderful, and they have done a lot for Linux, this raises a bar for them, and don't be surprised down the road they don't try to come up with this technology as well too. I wouldn't be surprised.
But fighting my system and figuring out PCI pass through and all that kind of stuff, that's more important than gaming for me. Like, I don't need to play the actual game. Like,
well, you're not most gamers, Alex.
No, I play Factorio. I don't really care about much else.
Well, somebody mentioned. Go ahead, Colin. Sorry.
This topic doesn't really excite me much. I'm not into games too much these days. Used to be, but I'll give a little bit of a scenario on this that I've noticed over the years. I've had the Xbox One, the 360, the original Xbox, and what I've noticed is the kids go out and buy a game. They come home, they put the disc in the Xbox, and it's downloading 90 gig. 90, that's with a G, 90 gig to play the game. And I said, is there even anything on that disc? And I don't think there is. I think the disc is just to say, yep, okay, good man, you bought it with your own money, good stuff, but now we'll download the whole game. And I think that's the way it's been going for a long time. So I don't see any difference with this, to be honest, because even if you buy a physical disc, I don't think you can do anything with it anyway, to be honest.
Well, that gets right into my thoughts too, Colin, is it's getting to the point where the powers to be don't want us to actually own any entertainment stuff whatsoever, whether it be music, whether it would be movies, anything you'd watch, to entertain yourself. Now they're going after the games. They want you to actually have to go online to participate in any of this stuff. And that's why I still have vinyl records. They're physical media. No one can take them away from me unless they point a gun at me or something.
Actually, Dan, you bring up a good point, and that's of piracy more than anything else. You can't really pirate a streaming game. You can pirate music off the internet, or you can pirate videos off the internet quite easily. You can just use a capture card if you want movies or your MP3 rippers. But if you got, but
That's
again,
illegal.
it's something.
I don't promote that.
No, I'm not promoting anything. I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying it's doable, and a lot of these things take off because of the piracy. Believe it or not. So the games themselves, if you're streaming a game, you can't pirate them because you haven't got the hardware to run them on in the first place because they're streamed to your browser or to your Chromecast. Yep. So that's a good point. That is actually done.
Well, the one point that if you're a gamer and if you play FPS games, the one point I would like to bring up is the fact that this also takes, and I was talking to you about it, Adam, the other day, about it takes the equation of hacking out. It takes that out of the equation because you don't have physical files that you can input into the screen, into your system, into the file. So, Adam,
You know,
Rocco
I do
aimbot.
feel
Oh my
like
God.
I do feel like that. I mean, okay, for FPS games not so much, but for other games, I do feel like that might be a bit of a loss for the community because a lot of games have vibrant modding communities, and like, okay, you beat Skyrim, so the next fun thing you're gonna do with Skyrim is mess with Skyrim mods, play with the game in fun ways that the developers didn't intend. You're not really cheating per se, but you're just having a bit of fun with it.
I would say, Tyler, to that, that the FPS genre has slowly lost that for years. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was the last Call of Duty, or Call of Duty 5 World at War was the last one that you could actually mod and have your own servers. After that, you no longer can have your own servers unless you buy them from whoever's renting them. So that argument is valid. I didn't like it any more than you do because I did run on realism servers and whatnot that we had on our own, but that's just a part of gaming now that you're losing that ability.
Yeah. And a lot of developers get their feet wet modding these games and playing with this. So there's kind of a loss in that realm as well.
The other thing I'll say though is that we're speaking. I guess we're all pretty heavy PC users. I think we're speaking from the minority of the market too, because I think the majority of people play games on consoles and mobile and other platforms.
Yeah.
So
I don't believe that for a second.
I disagree.
I gotta say, this is probably that's probably where Stadia's biggest strong point is going to be is being able to play a quick game while you're on the go on mobile or with a Chromebook or something like that. Still enjoy a PC game without needing to carry a big bulky gaming laptop without you.
Well, I won't be going on to Google Stadia anytime soon on Euro trucks because otherwise I wouldn't be able to beat up on caravans because no mods. So
that's a point.
Yep.
Good point. It's a good point.
To the caravan.
You mean you'll have to play the real game? No.
Yeah.
I know, it's shocking, Adam. I mean, I played it for about 3 months and then I thought, okay, this is boring. What can I do to this?
But see, so Stadia is not the same as like a regular game that we think of, right? It's not, they're not even built the same way. They're built, sure, they're using Linux and Vulkan and such, and we can kind of draw comparisons there. But just as people think that Stadia is bringing games to Linux, well, it kind of is through Stadia, but not to Linux native, because they're totally different APIs. They're totally different ways of doing things. There's no reason that games couldn't implement ways to integrate mods that are sanctioned mods, somewhat similar to how Bethesda did with Fallout 4 on the consoles. You could have a sanctioned set of mods that developers could submit for review and things, and Stadia could add them, and you can then add the mods to your game. And that way, it still exists on their server. It still exists in the sandboxed way that they want. But they get to filter out, the nude mods and stuff, I guess. But there are ways that you can get around this problem. It doesn't necessarily preclude the inclusion of mods.
But the one thing you said the other day.
Then the sanctioned mods would probably preclude, probably exclude certain copyrighted content. So then you can't have Thomas the Tank Engine as a dragon. And what fun is that?
Well, Adam, you brought up a good point the other day, or yesterday actually, on the stream, that this is just in its infancy right now. I mean, think about all of the pluses that you have right from the very start, but it's just starting out. And can you imagine a year from now what they can implement in this, features that they can implement, or games built directly to be optimized for Stadia and the connection and whatnot? So this is just the beginning.
Honestly, I would say the game genre I'd be most likely to play with on Stadia would be the FPS games where I don't really care to mess with mods or deal with anything local on them. But again, if it were something like Euro Truck Simulator or Skyrim where I would want to play with fun, different, maybe unsanctioned mods, I'd rather play it on something like Steam where I have that local copy installed.
Well, to be honest with you, I am not, and this is just my opinion, so I'm not concerned about a physical copy because I haven't had a physical copy of a game for years.
Well, I mean, local copy.
So what I'm saying, that's what I'm bringing up, is that I haven't had a physical copy of the game in years. Well, I still have my old games, but I'm saying I haven't bought a physical copy in years. So the idea of having a local copy on my computer doesn't, like, you've already let go of the physical copy. Letting go of the local copy for me is just the next step that, you know, all I really care about. The best thing about Stadia is that you can open your browser and click play and you are instantly in there.
Yeah.
I boot into Windows, and if I want to play a game, I open up Steam or whatever app it may be, and I have updates galore in the Steam app for all of these games. And I have to sit there and wait till they're done or download a new NVIDIA driver, or it's 15, 20 minutes before I can actually get to play.
Reminded me of something like in the couple of interviews I've listened to. Chris Titus mentioned that whenever he boots into Windows once a month to play games, he's spending at least 2 hours to prep for that game night to deal with not only just Windows updates, but Steam updates, game updates, whatever relevant updates that need to be pulled down. He says, like, yeah, I'll play a game with you. Just give me a heads up so I can, just take 2 hours to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like the other day on GT Sport, I wanted to download it because they've got the Lewis Hamilton challenge now where you can, win stupid prizes and stuff. I had to wait 3 hours while it downloaded the update. It was ridiculous. So
Most games right now are over 100 gigabytes. Some are 120 gigabytes. I bought Grid, hit buy, and hit play within 5 seconds of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing the game. That is awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah. That is awesome, actually.
So one thing we have to talk about is Linux adoption, right? One of the biggest things that blocks people from coming to Linux is their games.
Yep.
If you can provide a platform that you can tell somebody on Windows, 100%, no caveats, no nothing, that all the games that you have on Stadia on Windows work 100% exactly the same on Linux, then they have every reason to move over.
So,
do you know how many dual
agree
booters
with
this
you.
blows away?
So, Adam, I agree with you, but a point I'm going to make is this hate against Stadia is not just isolated to Linux community. I'm in a couple different.
It's not. You're
yeah,
right.
I'm on a couple different PC gaming Discords, and the hate against Stadia because it's just like to them it's another console, and they're PC gamers. Why would they touch something like that? They're heavy into the world of Steam or dare I say it, Epic or Origin or whatever these launchers are. They're into all these different Windows games.
Tyler.
So to them, telling them that to switch to Linux, they'd have to rebuy all their games on Stadia. That's if they're already on Stadia, that's an easy sell. If not, that's a hard sell.
Tyler, nobody likes change.
Yeah, nobody likes change.
I have a question about what this does to the hardware market and the high-end video card market and what it does there. And that's where I think you have the big thing versus PC versus console, because the console you have it and you're stuck. In the PC, you can really do a lot of stuff to make it. I mean, that's a huge market of hardware. So what does
I know, Bill. I know one thing that it does. One thing that it does is take all of those power-hungry AMD video cards out of everyone's computers in their basements and puts them in a data center somewhere. That's a lot more energy efficient, and it's managed.
If you don't buy your games on Stadia, you're killing the planet.
Right? That's
right, yeah. That's
just to make everybody happy. If you realize, it's $60 a game. If you buy a lot of games, there won't be any change in your pocket, and you won't have to deal with change.
Right?
That's true enough.
Bill, I had asked that question yesterday, what it's going to do to hardware manufacturers like NVIDIA when, if this takes off, and there are millions of users of Stadia who don't need high-end NVIDIA graphics cards anymore. What is that? Does that hurt them in the long run? I don't know.
I don't know. It's going to be a big question because, I mean, if this works, Sony's going to throw it out. Microsoft's going to throw it out. Steam's going to obviously have a...
Sony already has it. It's called PlayStation Now. They already have a cloud streaming service.
You know what I'm saying, though?
PS4s in the cloud. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Adam, though? If this really does work, everybody's going to do it. And it's going to go NVIDIA, AMD with their graphics cards. What is going to be the incentive for them to keep advancing some of the stuff that they've done? It's just a really interesting question. And, I mean, it also is like, if you can take your iPad Pro and be at your friend's house and go, I want to throw on the game, boom, I'm on my iPad Pro playing this awesome game, and I don't need to worry about anything until I have to upgrade my iPad Pro in 3 years.
I still think you're going to need
they're
graphics. Though,
they're
Bill.
not selling you the GPU anymore. They're selling Google or Microsoft or someone else the GPU. They're
Yeah.
still making money. It's not like Google has its own GPU and CPU here. They're getting it from Intel and AMD, and it's not like Microsoft is doing any different. They're all getting them from these vendors. Now, NVIDIA has their own cloud thing called GeForce Now, which they're obviously putting their own GPUs in. So these companies are still like making money for their hardware. It's not getting sent to us. It's getting sent to them.
And NVIDIA is not going to worry about losing the video card market because their GPUs are being used in scientific, industry for the weather mapping and, predictive analysis and all that stuff. The high-end mathematics computing is where the core of NVIDIA's business is pretty much based at this point. The video cards are just kind of, the downstream product of what they are creating for the high-end computing, supercomputers.
But there's a difference in the graphics cards, if you're doing design work and you're doing production type work, do you want a quadro card? There's difference in the way the FPS works and how it's presented. Now, there's still going to be a need or a demand for video cards, even in the gaming sector, because not everybody's going to be on Stadia, number one. Number two, and maybe down the road that might change. But the other thing is the downside that I could see of this is going to be the internet connection, because it doesn't matter. Even if you've got a high speed internet connection, eventually somewhere along the line, sooner or later, I don't think there's anybody in this platform right now that can say they've never had a hiccup with their internet connection. Rocco's proof of that too. We've been on streams live here where all of a sudden you get a storm outside or whatever.
I don't know what you're talking about, Joe.
Yeah, but the point is every single one of us have had hiccups, whether the router acted up or a firmware, it doesn't matter. So it's part of hardware woes. The video card itself, there's still going to be something to be said for native on here. And even when you're running a browser, it still comes down to, are you going to have screen tearing, and are you going to have response times? I mean, it's not all about just the browser and being able to run it on an iPad. There's a lot more to it than that. So I think you guys are, putting a nail in the coffin of these video or these GPU,
I don't think anybody said NVIDIA was going to shut down because of Stadia.
No,
I think we brought up the question of what does that mean for a video card companies like NVIDIA? Right. Do they lose sales? Do they, whatever?
No, we could have thought this when consoles got really good. The Xbox 4 does 4K gaming, no problem. But people still use their PCs for gaming.
Yeah. And
you see what I mean? I don't think the PC gaming side is going to go away because of Stadia. No. Because in the last 25 years, there's billions of consoles on the planet right now that are capable of playing games. Yes, we're all here with NVIDIA cards and whatever, playing PC games.
Yeah, I agree with Ali.
Going away at any time.
You're right, Ali.
PC gaming is not going to go. Like the PC gaming communities see Stadia as just a different platform, like the Xbox is a platform or the PlayStation is a platform.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't see that as an extension of PC gaming.
But you're not going to get the FPS on a console the same way you're going to get on a PC either.
No, that's true.
Did anybody see Eric Adams came in the house?
FPS.
He snuck in, dude.
Don't bring attention to it.
Right in.
If
Hey,
you
don't
ignore him,
He'll go away.
But there is a lot of do you know what I mean? We've had everything from the PlayStation 2 up that could have took on PC gaming, and it hasn't.
All right, I think we beat the Stadia conversation into a dead horse. I think that's what we did.
Rocco, I got something else I'd like to have you guys mention or talk about.
Is it a video about Linus Tech Tips?
No, it's actually about a piece of software that I found for this, because I was thinking, when one of our when Alan was on, we were talking about them building into Ubuntu, having basically a reset or restore mode that if you have issues, kind of like a Windows machine where you could go back in and do a restore or recovery. I started looking for this and I came across, which maybe it's been out and it's just, I've never known it, was called Resetar. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Have you heard of that?
No.
Is that a new form of nuke and pave?
What's that?
Is that a new form of nuke and pave?
Well, it'll put your system back to quote unquote, yeah, I guess factory. So yes, to answer your question, I get where you're going from. But the other thing is because I would like to see, if there was some way, because I thought, okay, you could create a partition, mirror your drive, put it in there. But then the problem is the one time you do that, then you're starting over. Now it's either that or do you simply just create a partition with a mirror of everything you have, no different than if you clone your drive, and if you have something go wrong on that one partition. But the problem is if you have the whole drive get affected, then you've lost that, which that could be the same thing for the recovery. But the nice thing about that is if you could just switch over partitions and then re-clone that over or recopy it over. But I just thought it was interesting software, and I didn't know if any of you heard of it and what you thought of it.
Time shift. Time shift. They do the same thing.
No. This is not a backup. This is supposedly there's a young man. I actually found some videos on it. And there was a young man that did a very good job explaining it. And it's actually a piece of software that you can install that you can literally, if you start having hiccups or problems in your distro, where you just click this and you can literally reset this back to factory. Yes, you might have to do some reinstalling your software or whatever. But
that's a bit like using my live CD.
Pardon me?
Was it on GitHub?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'll put the link in Zoom, and I'll just put the link in to YouTube as well, so people can go and have a look at it.
Yeah, I just think it'd be something interesting to explore and see what the rest of you have for opinions on it. I just tooled around it a little bit.
But isn't that what time shift does? Is create somewhat like a system restore point?
It does,
and then allows you to go back to that time. Like if you create a system restore point, and it's there, and then you go messing with your computer, and then it messes up, and you can go back to that restore point.
But this operates a little differently, I think, too. Again, I haven't learned a lot about it. So
my understanding is, though, with time shift, that to use that, don't you have to go into a live CD and then load up your backup that way? Because can you do it live from your PC that's mucked up?
I've never restored one from there, so I don't know.
Neither have I, because 25 minutes later, I'm back up with empty Linux anyway. So
exactly.
And time shift is not a backup tool. It just saves your settings. Right. Yeah.
Saves your settings, yeah, which is, I think, what this Resetar does as well.
Right.
From having a quick look at it, it literally just puts everything back to default.
Well, if anybody noticed in the Budgie, I think it was the Budgie welcome screen, there was a button that said reset your settings to default. I didn't try it, but I didn't see how it worked, but it was there anyway.
They also have a new feature where you can upload your settings and to some share, and you can pull them back down if you did a reinstall.
So where did they get uploaded at, Dan?
I think I haven't done a lot of research into this, but I think you have to have your own storage, like a Google Drive or something like that, and that's where your settings go. But you can pull them back down. Yeah, they don't host it for you. You've got to have your own place to put it, but it's if they don't have it now, I know they talked about it, so it may be in an upcoming release.
And what's interesting about that is I think deep in, we're going to be doing the same thing, but storing it themselves.
Yeah.
And there was the usual furore of it. Oh, are you really going to let this Chinese company have all of your settings? Blah, 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 blah. And yet we're sitting here talking about it being a great feature in Budgie. So it's
Budgie's not storing it for you. So
no, of course.
Right.
It's a similar principle that one implementation of it is the devil and another implementation of it is acceptable because you get to choose where you want it stored.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. You get to choose.
Yep.
If somebody offered it to you and you said, well, I don't want to store it there, you don't have an option in Deepin to store it locally. So,
correct.
Just copy all your .files over to an external drive, job done.
I so want to, like, Dustin actually has all of his .files on somewhere. I don't know. It's one of his websites, either a GitHub or something. And I so want to automate that at some point to where if I need to reinstall, I can just pull down all my .files. And I just never have the time to go look at it.
Isn't part of the reason for nuking and paving is to have that clean slate? Like, sometimes blowing away those old crufty dot files is the reason for the delay.
You're right.
Well, yeah, but you can just download each dot file as it comes along, and when the one
That's
problem
what I do
comes
now,
in,
yeah.
you're the builder.
But the average person's not going to know what a dot file is. So to me, what I was thinking is if I'm putting a computer together and I want to have some means of a restore partition, and the difference between, and even where Resetar might fall short, is it'd be nice to have something on there where if I set up the system from scratch before I set it out and I loaded it up with every piece of software I thought would be great to have out there for them. That's the problem. It'd be nice to try to have something to do a restore for the average, the new user to Linux, that if all of a sudden they mess it up and they know that if I hold, like Windows, it might be, F8 or F7 or whatever they pick for it to go to that, and then pick the restore partition and go to that, and boom, and there you go. You put everything back to where you had it, including the software. That's what I was kind of looking for.
You could do that.
Like a recovery partition for
any other
Microsoft
management tool if you wanted.
I can't hear you. Two of you are talking at once.
Sorry, Alex. Sorry, Alex. You go.
Go ahead. You want?
No. I was just saying similar to the recovery partition on Windows systems now, where if you can't boot it, it loads all the OS back into the thing as static. Sorry, Alex, as you were saying.
Yeah, you could do like config management type stuff. You could put it into Ansible or Puppet or something like that. And
what is Puppet?
Oh, so Ansible, you SSH and push stuff from a central node out. Puppet, you install an agent on the node, and then it calls back to a central server and says, my state is this, should it be? It's like a push versus pull type model.
And in English, that means? Sorry, but some of us aren't.
Come on, for the 70s of the group.
The minute you said Ansible and push and pull and all that, I just went, oh.
Sounds like a piece of software.
When you do SCP, right, you are generally pushing a file from your local system to a remote system, right? Now, if you have a script running on the other node that pulls that file instead of pushes it, does that help explain it a bit better?
Well, what you're describing is Mac or Apple, because that's what they basically have is for their system. If you wipe your system, you just log in, it looks for your credentials, and boom, it pulls it down from their servers and reinstalls everything the same way. But the point is I'm talking about something that's native on the system, though.
Internet-based recovery of Macs is, and I hate to say it, pretty slick.
Yeah,
it is.
No, it is.
No, it is.
I thought, Rocco, you had a script that, because you have separate data partition, don't you? I thought.
I do. Well, how I got around that was of not looking to back up the config files was to have a data partition drive, not a partition, a data drive separately in the computer, and then I symlink to all of my folders there.
Yep.
So I just run a script that in the beginning of an install that installs the programs I want to install, that adds to the FS tab the hard drives that I need to have automatically mounted, and it will also remove the documents, pictures, videos folder out of your home folder and add the symlink to the correct location. And then
that's good practice anyway. You could do that and then just like add Git or something, and you have everything backed up and versioned.
Yeah. So that's how I get around that. But it just seems like it's more technical.
Clonezilla, maybe.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I have looked at, years ago when I used to run Windows, I had looked at, we had purchased Acronis. And Acronis has there's this back and forth thing that it would work on Linux, but it's not officially supported on Linux. And I always loved Acronis, and Clonezilla is nice, but it's not as friendly to new users as it could be. As Acronis was dead simple. And I'm not talking for me personally. I'm talking for other people, family members and whatnot. Acronis was dead simple. Anybody could do that. I think we need that same type of program that is dead simple as a clone backup.
What do vendors like Dell and System76 do when they ship out Linux machines? Do they have something?
Well, yeah. But I don't know what they personally do.
Have an image restore that you can normally get to from a menu, and then it will just reboot the machine and reset everything back to factory settings.
Right. The only way you can damage that is if you wipe your whole drive completely. Otherwise, if you're just doing a restore, it's basically again, with depending on what their call up is, whether it's an F2 setting, which it typically isn't. Most of them would be like F8 or whatever, and then you hit recovery or restore. Could be F11, but the point is what it's doing is you call up, you go to the recovery partition. Now you've kind of like what we do when you log into your partition, and then you're basically administering that, and now that's pointed to reimaging the C drive.
So, how could we use that on a personal level on your computer?
You can't, and not unless you have the tools to make it.
Well, I mean, obviously the tools are there somewhere.
Well, you could do. I mean, you could still do that even with Linux if you turned around and did your ISO on there, where you're pointing it to that, the recovery, and you'd have to basically take the drive letter out somehow, so they can just get to it through a key command, the same principle, and then re-ISO it. But that doesn't do anything for maintaining your software, and that's the part that I'm kind of trying to think about on how you could do that.
Yeah, but I think as far as software is concerned, Joe, a regular backup covers that. I'm more concerned about getting a factory reset, basically, partitioned right back to the way it was when you first opened it up, kind of thing. And obviously, these companies use this stuff in the back end to install these systems, to install the same image on every system. How do we get that down to the user level?
So you need something that can also partition. Then you could use.
You'd need to talk to the devs of like Calamares and the other installers, so that the installer itself will take the basics of the ISO image and stick it into a hidden partition when you tell it to wipe the disk and install from scratch.
So that's exactly how Pop! OS is doing it. It installs it to a separate partition that is mounted as part of the EFI system, and that's it. So there's your answer, Rocco. Just go to talk to System 76 and copy what they did.
I think we need to.
I think Calamares is working on something similar to that, where they call it OEM mode. So you have an image that's kind of pre-configured, and then you go through and fill out the normal first startup stuff, if you will. So it's a similar concept, probably a little more nuke and pave thing, but there's no reason it probably couldn't be adopted for something.
The difficulty I have with all of these solutions, though, is that they are very technically orientated. I mean, I remember when I first got my machine that before this one, I didn't bother with a DVD drive. Now, without an inbuilt DVD drive, and because it was USB 3, I couldn't reinstall Windows 7 until I went through this massive headache of trying to slipstream the USB drivers into the DVD. And I'm like, after the first
I remember
paragraph.
that.
Yes, I remember that too.
I remember that as well.
And I'm sitting at the first
I completely
paragraph
forgot about that, Zeb.
of this 14-page set of instructions to get myself a custom built. And I'm like, forget it. It's not happening. All you clever guys out there who understand how to build a distro and understand about SSH and nodes and everything else, for your average user, and I'll go back to say that from technically wording, Rocco, we'll call it technically wording, I don't understand all this gobbledygook. If you're going to give me instructions, give me 1 to 10 in plain English.
Okay.
That's what these people don't do.
Number 1, boot from a USB. Number 2, DD or Etcher. Number 3, you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's creating a USB. That's brilliant.
Yeah, but
now do the same thing. Hang on, Ali, hang on a minute. Now do the same thing for what you were talking about just then about backing up your dot files. Simple as that. None of this node and SSH and all that.
Simple as that is you open up a terminal, you type in my live 3D, and you could copy literally the whole of your operating system as an ISO. You DD it to a USB stick, and you have.
Well, hang on, DD. That's a disk destroyer. I don't want to DD it, mate. That's a nightmare.
I think you need to just buy a Mac, my friend.
No.
That's the other alley. Which
actually,
I'm just trying to get user idiot Windows friendly instructions.
I
don't want to learn DD. You said it right.
Okay, use DD copy. Yeah, Etcher, DD copy, refresh. Use what you want to get it onto your USB stick. And once you're done, you just plug it in your USB stick boot off the USB stick, use the installer, and everything's refreshed as it was when you left.
So what's the difference between doing that and just doing a fresh install?
Okay,
because all your settings are saved because it took your current system to make the ISO.
Yeah,
Hold
on,
stop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Stop.
Yeah, so it's not the same then as what you just said. It just resets your system. No. It resets your system to a time when you decided to make a backup. So I go through the install, I get everything up and running perfectly. Now take my snapshot and make it an ISO.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Great. Where's the link for that, please?
Well, actually, Ken,
it's
in
only
the chat,
available on PC Loss, Zeb. It's my live CD. You'll find it.
Next.
But the script's there. No, it isn't really next. All you got to do is like download the script and make it your own. Well, have somebody make it your own.
So Ken in the chat mentioned that he believes that the MX Linux guys have that in their installer.
Yes, MX does it as well.
I think I do remember
You're right.
them saying that. So
It's called a respin.
Yes, MX. Yeah.
But the thing is, Ali, what you just described is kind of what I mentioned about trying to keep it on the same disk. If you mirrored everything after you did your install, you put all your software on it. Now you want to turn around and make a copy of that. You could put it on an isolated partition. But I also thought, okay, well, USB drives are so cheap. So let's say you do all the software and you've got 45 gigs. You turn around, you buy 64 gig, flash drive, you include it with the machine. You say, here, if you got to restart this, what you do, you copy it over and boom, you're done. But even at that, you'd have a step-by-step instructions. I was just trying to think if you can do that without the USB, or you have the USB as backup media and you still had that on your primary install, or you turn around, restart from scratch, and then you copy it. It doesn't matter.
Well, instead of that, you could make a grub entry to... You could have the ISO on a separate partition rather than on the USB stick side, and you could tell Grub to boot a loop partition, which would be the ISO off the different drive or different partition. You could do that.
Well, look,
I think
we are running out of time, and I'm going to
see what I mean.
Buy a Chromebook and be done.
I'm going to end it there. The last thing I'm going to say about the conversation is there's many tons of options that you can do. I'm just looking to further Linux on a whole. So I think we need something that is dead simple for people who are not technically savvy enough to do the things. You can do 100 different things and back up 100 different ways, but I think we need those dead simple programs. So
that was the point I was getting.
So we are out of time, but everybody gets the last word. PZ.
Thank you, Rocco, for putting this on every week. It is just a fantastic place to come to and chill out with friends who love Linux. So thank you all. And also a special thanks to Dan Simmons and Eric, who are there working tirelessly in the background, doing all the Discord stuff. And it's just an awesome community. Thank you all.
Peter, last word.
It was fantastic having Biddle on St. Andrew's Day. Hence the shirt.
Nice. I love it. Dan Simmons.
Hey, thanks for hosting, Rocco, and thanks to Zeb and Eric. As always, good show. Lots of fun. And thanks to the Budgie team, Ubuntu Budgie team, for a great release. And look forward to Ubuntu.
All right. Tony, do you have Ubuntu installed yet?
Yes, I do.
I figured you did.
But so would 50+% of the rest of you, by the looks of it. I seem to have started a bit of a trend. It looks nice, actually, I have to say, but that's for next week. Thanks for doing this again, Rocco, as always. And I echo what Zeb said about the other two guys whose names have completely slipped my mind. Eric and
Dan.
Dan, that's it. Yeah, I'm getting old. Can't remember names. I look forward to next week, and the week after that, I think it's the double whammy with the EU version. So
there may or may not be a special announcement that week. Just saying.
Yeah, I heard people. going on in the chat something about you were supposed to be making an announcement, and then Zeb said it's next week.
That's fake news, Tony. Fake news.
Yeah, no. I don't believe that. I think you just wanted to keep us all on tenterhooks, waiting to see what it is you're going to drop a bombshell about.
We may change things up next week in our distro challenge, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say for now. Derek, last word.
Just want to say thank you again for having me. One thing I've already installed Ubuntu and updated, so I'm all set for really plugging away on this one.
Cool.
Nice. Chris, last word, brother.
There we go. Well, didn't really have a whole lot to say tonight. Still don't have hardware that I can really do any gaming on or anything like that. But always like being here, and see you next week. Everybody, Snowpocalypse 2019.
Big Pod, last word. I think he fell asleep. I'm just saying.
It is late, early in the morning.
Kevin.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining in this week. It was nice talking to all of you, and have a good evening.
Colin?
Rocco. Should I need not mention that you saying earlier we don't like change, and then all of a sudden Rocco's saying we're talking about changing things up next week? What's going on?
You got me, Colin. You got me. So we're not.
We don't like change.
We're not disrupting the show or removing the distro challenge or anything like that. I think the change is coming from what we're doing. So
it's just something I observed during the
right. That's a good observation, Colin. Thank you for reminding me.
So yeah, thanks for this platform. It's really good. I think I got some good news. I downloaded the tar.bz file from Blender. Is that a tarball? Is that what you call a tarball?
Yeah, it is.
Something like that. Yep. And it's got the binary one inside. That's actually working.
So you might get that video out.
It must be a flat pack issue, I think. So
it definitely is.
That's that's good news. I'm pretty happy. So I cancelled it because I didn't want to be doing that while I'm on here. So good news. So thank you for the platform. Looking forward to trying out Ubuntu next week and see how we go with that. So thanks everyone involved in running this show. It's great.
Bill, last word.
Thank you, Rocco and Eric, Seb, and Dan, for everything you guys do. Rocco didn't say anything, so you need to remember to watch Linux Spotlight and see his interview with Rob. It goes back to the core of Destination Linux and is a really fun thing to watch. Thank you to the Budgie team for all they've done, the Ubuntu Budgie team. And a shout out, even though he's not here, Dustin appears in the Biddle chat, Telegram chat, and helps out a whole lot. So thank you for Dustin for spending the time with us.
Yep. Joe, last word.
Well, thank you for indulging me tonight. Sometimes it's hard to suppress. I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but I love invigorating conversations, and I think tonight was fabulous. I do thank you and everybody here for getting together every week like this. And I also have to thank Tony for raising the bar, because I know it had to come down to a photo finish with him and I, because I messaged earlier about Ubuntu. Did he have it installed? I had it installed probably 10 minutes and updated after you guys made the decision to do this. So now it's like this thing we've got to do. But I think this is fabulous. Every week we come up with something new we've got to do here. But yeah, have a wonderful week. I hope everybody had a fabulous Thanksgiving, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And your interview with Rob was amazing. It was like a walk back in time. I loved it.
Yep, I agree. That was an awesome interview. He's a great person to talk to. Tyler, last word.
Thanks for the show. The discussion about Stadia was fantastic, and won't be here next week. I've got D&D obligations, so I'll be here the following week.
All right, Adam, last word.
Good show, guys. Always fun. We should all go buy your Premier Editions of Stadia if you care about A, the environment, and B, Linux. Hello. Jeez, people.
I love it. Dan Kelly, last word.
Thank all you wonderful guys that put this show together and make it what it is. It is really a very special place and date and time of the week. And I want to thank the people on Telegram that hang around to answer all my weird questions. And I hope everybody has a really safe week until next weekend. We'll see you again.
All right. Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco, for the space. Thank you, Zeb, Dan, and Eric for the support you give it. I want to thank the Solus crew for coming up with Budgie in the first place, and the Ubuntu devs and the Ubuntu Budgie devs for the incredible job they have done taking what the Solus team made and just making it that much better an experience. And thank you all for being here, and see you next week.
Alex, last word, brother.
Not really. No. Nice to be here, I guess. I didn't really contribute much to Budgie, but there you go. Stadia is an interesting one, though, isn't it? Like it just feels, Google feels a bit dirty, a bit like a dirty secret, guilty pleasure almost. I don't want to trust them, but they seem to be doing some good stuff, but they need to earn my trust yet.
You could also plug your podcast if you'd like.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Self-hosted.show. Thank you.
There you go. Ali, last word.
Yeah, just a pleasure being here. Enjoyed the debates tonight on both sides of the stream. It's been really good. Sorry, I just got distracted by the chat. Just thank you for us all being here, and thank you for, us having an open discussion about things, and we can get pretty heated over things, but we know we're all friends at the end of the day. Thank you for Telegram as well. I love that place. So yeah, enjoyed every minute of it. I should be here next week. Should. Been the opposite word.
Dig it.
So thank you.
Steve, last word.
As always, thank you, Rocco. And as I commented on your stream, you and Rob are such great gentlemen, spokesmen for Linux. Appreciated the Linux Spotlight. Thank you, everybody, for joining tonight, and hope you have fun. I'll be on in the morning if you want to get up early, 8 o'clock Central Time. See you guys then.
Steve will have his normal every Sunday chat, so check his channel out. Eric, last word.
Hello.
How are you? First word and last word.
Well, I'll quote Groucho Marx and say, "Hello, I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going." You had to listen to that. There you go. And that's how it ends. I love it.
That's it.
So I just came to say hi to everybody. I was doing other things, and but I wanted to at least come say hi. So hi, bye.
Take it. All right, that's going to wrap it up. I do, again, want to thank the developers from David on down to Dustin and the other guys that I don't know their names of, the Ubuntu Budgie developers. Thank you very much for all of the hard work you guys do. It gives us an opportunity to come together and talk about our favorite subject. So much appreciated. One of the things I want to say here is a big happy birthday to my friend PZ tomorrow, December 1st. He will be 21 again.
Happy birthday, Zeb.
Who's going to sing it? Let's go already. 1, 2, 3.
He'll be 21 again. So
actually,
yeah.
Technically, he's 20.
Blah, 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 blah.
Happy birthday, Zeb.
Happy birthday, Zeb. And it is your birthday now, Zeb, in the UK. I'm just saying.
Natal Day.
Yeah, for him, it is his birthday already.
Mate.
All right. Thank you, Bill, for mentioning Linux Spotlight, and you other guys. I did talk to Rob this past weekend. It was a fabulous episode. You should watch it. It was just two guys talking about Linux, and that's where it started, and that's what made it awesome. This week coming, we broke the record for length of 2 hours and 32 minutes.
Wow.
But I think you're going to enjoy that conversation. That was a conversation with Martin Wimpress, and that will be coming out Wednesday at 6 a.m.
Brilliant.
You mean Wimpy could talk for a long time?
Oh my, that's a shock, huh?
I know, right?
Oh boy.
It is a long episode, but it flew by like it was just like that. He's such a professional. From combining, being able to deep dive into such technical levels that I would never be able to talk about, and yet still have humor and everything else. It's just he's a professional. So check that episode out Wednesday at 6 a.m. This coming week, we are trying out Ubuntu 1910. Maybe Sean Davis will join us, maybe, if he can muster up some time. Other than that, that's going to be it for us. We will see you next week. But until then, long live Linux.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.